Because this is Friday's Flag Day.
We'll go ahead and begin, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting where we'll review the action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening, June 18th at 6 p.m. We'll call upon our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow, to review those action items. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Your first item will be under your consent agenda, and it's considered Resolution R-24-114, a resolution acknowledging the receipt of the City of Hot Springs financial statements for April 2024, and our Finance Director, Karen Scott, will present.
Good afternoon. As you all know, monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The April 2024 financial statements will be linked to your board action request, and staff recommends acknowledging receipt of the April 2024 financial statements.
Any questions of Ms. Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have considered Resolution R-24-115, a resolution authorizing a memorandum of agreement for the replacement of wastewater facilities with Westwood Village Sewer Facilities Board, and our city engineer, Gary Carnahan, will discuss the item.
Thank you. In 1977, 1978, quite a long time ago, Westwood Village was formed with 66 lots in a subdivision plat, a private subdivision, and they installed their own packaged wastewater treatment plant. But over the years, time has taken its toll, and that plant is no longer serviceable. And Westwood Village was encouraged at that point by the Department of Environmental Quality to see if they could connect to the city wastewater system, because DEQ really wants to discourage having these individual package plants around the lake. So they hired RJN, our wastewater modeling consultant, to look at our system to find a place where their flow could enter our wastewater system safely or appropriately. And so they've identified that spot, but it's actually about 3 miles from Westwood Village, because Westwood Village is, I forgot to tell you, it's Albert Pike, Highway 270 West, when you get to the bridge where the lake goes under. It's about 3 miles from Thornton Ferry Road to that point, long ways out there. So they hired an engineer and developed some design plans. Oh, they also hired the engineer and RJN to evaluate their existing collection lines, manholes, sewer pipes, and they determined that they were all also worn out. So they have developed an engineering plan to replace all of those internal lines and build a new pump station and a 3-mile pipeline to connect to the city system. That's almost a $2 million project. They were able, though, to obtain a grant of $1,472,000, a federal grant through ANRC, and also a low-interest loan for the extra amount of money, so they have money from that loan and the grant to fund that project. So we have worked out with them the details of how that relationship between them and the city would work out. Initially, they'll pay for everything, have it all installed. Their engineer will inspect it. We will also inspect the installation. They will become city water and sewer customers and pay our normal rates. We'll maintain the system to make sure it's maintained properly. And then when they pay off their loan, then they'll ask the board to accept those assets as city assets, like we do with sewer improvement districts, water improvement districts. So I think that's kind of a general overview. We'll be asking the board to approve that agreement, and you'll have it in your packet.
Any questions of Mr. Carnahan? Director Garcia?
If I understand correctly, then the city would have no obligation regarding their debt. that they take on. for
That is
this,
correct.
And we don't take over maintaining the assets till after that's completely paid.
No, we would they'll pay their water and sewer rates, which we use to fund our operations department. It's better for us to maintain the lines and the pump station to make sure they're maintained properly. So we do that same thing with Royal Water District and with the other water and sewer improvement districts that we've had over the years. So we'll actually do the maintenance, but we won't own the line. If something had to be like a major replacement or whatever, they would own it, they would be responsible for that. But for everyday maintenance, we would go ahead and provide that maintenance.
So if it was an expense, they would still have to bear that expense, a huge expense. But you're
If it was a
talking
huge
about a new meter or something that the city will pay.
Right. If we have to send our crews out, let's say they have to replace the floats in the pump station or something like that, or then the city would do that. But if it was if something big blew up, they would have to pay for that.
And will there be a meter at each residence?
A water meter, yes, ma'am.
And they're covering the expense of those initial installations?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Each one of the residents happen to already be water customers, so that does help us
Oh, okay.
in calculating what the monthly sewer bill would be, because they're water customers of the city.
Okay, thank you for that.
And I forgot to mention too that we'll they'll pay the sewer impact fee, for each one of those residences.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Director
Thank you.
Webb, hold on. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to help me clarify what you were just sharing with the board, Mr. Gary, you were saying that the only cost for the city is going to be for operation. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any idea, at least to get us started, as what we're looking at for being that cost?
I'm sorry, I really don't. It would, with a new system, it would not be a big deal. But there's really probably going to be no cost to maintain the pipeline itself.
Right.
The cost would be, we would have to have one of our pump station operations people do a daily or
So there's labor
periodic,
checks.
go by, check the pump station, make sure everything's operating properly, that
And-
kind of thing.
And then,
Our rate structure is set, thinking about those O&M charges that we have outside and inside the city. I do want to say, though, that this has been in discussions for well over 5 years that I know of, that they've had these failures there. We could not entertain taking on that system while we ourselves have issues within ours. So that was one of the reasons they had to go into A&RD and replace their entire infrastructure all the way around the loop of that subdivision before we could entertain tying in. Of course, ANRC with ARPA funds were able to come in and help them do that. And we were also recipients of about $5 million that were favorably looked upon with us trying to help Westwood.
so when you're saying they're going to replace cost if anything were to happen to the pump station, and they've been having problems for the last 5 years, that's referring to Westwood Village. And I'm not that familiar, you'll have to excuse me with that particular area. Would that be like a POA or an HOA? Is that who kind of they is in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Right.
all right, thank
They
you.
have a POA, and then they also, specific to this new construction project, they have formed an organization called the Westwood Village Sewer Facilities Board. So that's who our contractor would be with.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes,
Gary,
sir.
I guess the question I have is, when we've accepted developments in the past, then we assumed all responsibilities. Are you saying that this is different? I mean, they're gonna build it, they're gonna tie in, but you kind of made it sound like, well, we'll do the little day-to-day stuff, but if something big happens, they're still responsible. They're still responsible after we accept it?
Well, that's because the difference here is that on a regular subdivision development, say, there's no debt. The developers don't have a debt on that system. They give it to us free and clear of any debt, so we take it immediately. Here with Westwood Village, they still have debt, so we are taking, just like with a sewer improvement district, we don't really say that we own that until that debt's paid off.
So eventually, 20 years down or so, whatever the term of the note is, then we'll assess and accept if we want to.
Yes, sir.
Right. I mean, there's two ways to do it. One's an improvement district, where the other is a facilities board. And so in an improvement district, we wait until they close out before we put their infrastructure on our books as an asset that we then depreciate. But up until that point, we are providing service to the customer, and so we will maintain it to the extent necessary to provide that service.
Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Gary, you may have said, and if you did, I apologize. I was listening and reading here. Who's going to pay the low-interest loan that they have? Will each of those property owners be assessed a monthly fee to make that debt service payment?
Right. They're going to have a debt service surcharge on each of their water bills.
So we'll collect that?
We'll collect
and
it.
we'll,
And then we'll charge a small administrative fee
right?
and pass those funds through to them, and they'll pay,
And
use
they'll
that
make
to
their
pay their
payment.
loan.
Okay.
We do that similar thing with Royal Water District.
Okay, thank you.
Director Garcia?
What is the administrative fee? What is the, sorry,
I don't know we haven't really set that.
because I know
I think
some
on
in the
Royal,
past
it's-
haven't been adequate. They were some that started years ago are way too low for today, for the administrative rate.
Yeah, the only one we've done that for is Royal. The others, that's why, quite frankly, we prefer a special improvement district, because a special improvement district is a ad valorem tax that's assessed to the property owner, and so it's not on us to collect it. But a facilities board is a little different. I think we just charge per bill. Karen may be able to speak to this. We just charge per bill the cost of sending the invoice out, which in this case, they're already a water customer. They're going to be getting our bill regardless. It's just going to have another code included on that for the wastewater.
It's a minimal cost.
Though we
But it's
have to
be more
move the money
time.
to
We
to
do. Yes, sir.
the committee or. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you all.
Your next item is consider Resolution R-24-116, a resolution amending Resolution Number 10402 pertaining to an agreement with the IPS Group, Inc., and for integrated smart parking system, and approving a budget amendment. And again, our Public Works Director, Ron Seabright, will present the item.
Good afternoon. This is an amendment that is going to pay for the shipping and the taxes for the pay stations that were shipped to us. This wasn't included in the original proposal, as we weren't sure on the quantity of the pay stations that we're going to use until after our site visit. Once that was finalized, we got with the company and had them ship them out, and the total for that amendment would be $24,312.60 to cover those items.
Any questions of Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. You said it's for the pay stations, so this is to pay for parking downtown?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the question that I asked when this was first presented was, I think people are going to have, or how are people supposed to pay for the parking?
They'll have two ways to pay. They can either walk up to the pay station and pay with their credit card, or there's going to be a mobile app which they can scan a barcode and get on ParkSmart, and they can pay through their phone.
Okay, so will there be, those are the only two ways? Will there be a way to pay cash and then maybe acquire a little plastic card that could go in? Because people will, I mean, that's like, people will need more than those 2 ways. And this is something maybe that
We're
we,
trying to get away from cash, because cash causes a lot of problems on these machines. Jamming and not providing the right change, things of that nature. So the recommendation was to stay away from cash and either go with the mobile app or a pay station where they pay with a credit card or a debit card.
Director Garcia?
In-
I'm sorry.
in that-
Director Beard, do you have a
I
follow-up?
I have, yes, but we'll want to hear
Sorry.
what.
I
Director
was going to
Garcia.
ask, with the preloaded credit cards, when you go and pay and you have it to use what you've loaded
Yeah,
on it?
if it's a preloaded Visa or something like that,
That'll
that'll
work,
definitely
right?
work with the machine.
Thank you.
Director Beard?
Maybe we'll, something, the 2 options is something that I think we need more options for this. But all that to say, this is to get those machines here so people can pay for parking, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we'll add or have this conversation again later.
Any further questions to Ron? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have consider Resolution R-24-117, a resolution authorizing asset transfer agreements with the Southwest Central Regional Solid Waste Management District, thereby transferring certain assets to the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I'll cover this one in Samantha's absence. Several years ago, the City of Hot Springs operated the recycle center for the entire solid waste district. And during that time, certain assets were purchased by the district for that recycling that recycling facility. Things like semi-trailers for electronic waste storage and transport. Those were set out at Garden, Arkadelphia, Garland County, Malvern, Hot Spring County, as well as the City of Hot Springs. We also had forklifts that were purchased through that organization and other types of equipment. Several years ago, the City of Hot Springs became the only person in our recycling center on Runyon. Each entity within the solid waste district kind of has their own programs now, and really has beefed up to the point where everyone needed to really operate their own services. So these assets have remained on the solid waste district's books, basically, for the past several years, even though each one of the entities are still using them. Most of those are fully depreciated out. They were purchased anywhere from 08, 09, till just a few years back. So this transfers those assets to the appropriate entity, and these are assets that are used and housed here at the City of Hot Springs. Each one of the entities I just mentioned has a asset list that they'll have their respective bodies approved to transfer as well. And we've been able to get all the information over to our finance director as far as how much those assets were originally and what they are now. So I think that, and they'll be in your packet as well. You'll see what that equipment is, but this is just a transfer of assets from the solid waste district to the City of Hot Springs that are used in our solid waste department's recycling program.
Any questions of Bill? Director Garcia?
You said they were mostly depreciated. Are they transferring over at zero book value?
I believe most of them are. There may be a couple on there that still have a little bit of book value, but most of them are well depreciated.
And we're transferring them over because we're not paying anything.
We're not
They're
purchasing, they're
donating.
just a transfer. And a lot of them were purchased through recycle grants through the district, so that even though there was a cost there, they were part of the recycling program.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-24-118, a resolution approving a lease agreement between the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas and Brent James doing business as BAG Investments LLC for Hangar A10 number 4. And our airport director, Don Rollett, will talk about the item.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This resolution's a lease with B&J Investments. Brett James is a business owner here in town. He's been at the airport for quite a while, looking to expand some services. There's a small commercial hangar, and it will be used primarily for aircraft storage. with his anticipated aircraft brokerage, buying and selling aircraft periodically, as well as some upholstery maintenance. It's a 5-year lease with 2 extensions on it.
Any questions on this, Director Garcia?
For what amount?
This one is $751 a month.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ron, how many aircraft can fit in this hangar?
Excuse me?
How many aircraft can fit in this hangar?
2, 3 small ones. He's got one in there right now. There'll be a second one that he will be owning, but that'll be part of the brokerage. So he has a private one that he'll store in there, and then the ones that he's moving.
So is the price of the second one about the same as the first, or, 700 and some bucks a month?
For that size of hangar. It goes by the square footage. It's 2,500 square feet.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have consider resolution R-24-119, a resolution approving a lease agreement between the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas and Randall Wood, DBA Alpha 10 Aviation for hangar A10, unit number 2 and 7. And again, Don.
This resolution is with Alpha 10 Aviation. It's going to be an overflow hangar. It's 2,500 square feet. He operates aviation maintenance area that's going to be in one of the next lease. And so this will be an overflow when the aircraft is waiting for parts or other issues that's going to have it in the shop for prolonged periods. That will allow him to store it in a hangar versus outside. And this is a 5-year lease with 2 extensions. The previous one, I stand corrected on the square footage for the previous one. It is 1,300, and then this one is 2,500 square feet.
Any questions on this?
Did you say what this month rent was?
I don't have it in front of me. I think it's in the packet. I think it's 1,360.
1,360.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe off subject, but how much more availability hangar space is there for aircraft?
Currently, we have 107 aircraft on the field. We got 95 hangars. Several of them are in community hangars. All of the T hangars, the smaller hangars, are occupied. We don't have any available right now. And we have a waiting list. Last time I looked at the waiting list, is about 20 people on the waiting list, which is about average for the area.
What is the cost of constructing a hangar?
I'm not sure on the T hangars when you get multiple units. We had one resolution that came through in March that was approved by the board for an 80 by 80 hangar. That total amount was going to be a little over $800,000 for an 80 foot by 80 foot, which is a 90-10 with the state and the airport.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have consider resolution, resolution R-24-120, a resolution approving a lease agreement between the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas and Randall Wood, doing business as Alpha 10 Aviation for hangar A6. And this monthly rent is $3,514.50, and that's for hangar and ground rent. Don?
That's correct. Randall Wood has been there for quite a while with the Alpha 10 Aviation. We'd had some issues in the past with getting leases signed and agreed to, and so we finally got to that point now. This is his main hangar where he does his aircraft maintenance, and he's usually pretty busy. He has quite a bit of business in this hangar. So he's in there, he's the only occupant of this hangar, and it's about 8,000 square feet, I believe.
Any questions on this item?
Again, the amount,
Pardon?
3514.
no, 3514 a month. What'd you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what Bill said, sorry.
No further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is consider Resolution R24-121, a resolution approving the fiscal year 2024 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Annual Action Plan, and authorizing submission of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for projects listed in the action plan, and Deputy City Manager Lance Spicer will present.
Yes, thank you, Board. If you'll recall, there's kind of a timeline of events. The Board back in April of this year, you did approve a prioritized list that was recommended to you all by the Community Development Advisory Committee, CDAC. And within that list, there was a series, we went 1 through 10 for the various projects, which will be listed in your packet. But really with HUD, the Annual Action Plan, what that is, that's a summary of events and activities that you're going to carry out for that program year with the funding that you receive. So HUD, on May 8th, we received notice of the funding was $401,437. They set a timeline for you. Once you receive that funding allocation, you got 60 days to get this annual action plan put together and submitted. So that was the reasoning before positioning the prioritized list ahead of the funding allocation. So to position us better to get that submitted to HUD in a timely fashion, which it must be submitted by July the 8th. So we'll certainly meet that timeline. But the projects will be listed in your packet. CDAC, whenever they accepted applications, there was actually $786,000 in applications that were submitted. But of course, needs and wants exceeded our funding. So CDAC prioritized those, and within your packet, it'll have the listing of applications. But at this point, we'll be funding 1 through 10 for the annual action plan, which we would be submitting to HUD.
Any Director Trustee?
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, what did we project the balance or the grant to be?
Pretty close to 400.
Was it 400?
Yeah.
I thought it was something less, but I didn't.
Kathy, I think she actually went to like possibly 390 and 395, but in years past, I think we've, this is actually a decrease in funding we've received in the past, but we got pretty close to the estimate whenever we brought forth that prioritized list.
Well, you said we're funding projects 1 through 10. I thought it stopped at 9, and we only partially funded 9 when she came through.
The
first in April.
You may not be including the project, the administration fees. So that's the city's fees to fund those. But there are actually 9 projects from different agencies.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Total was 401,437.
Right. But our projection, is that what we projected in April? That's what I was asking.
I want
That's what I
to,
Pretty
I
close.
think it was.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be very close to that.
All right. Thank you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you're close too. If I remember right, I think she said 375,
Yeah.
somewhere in that range. And she said if we get it, we'll be doing real good. It looks like we're doing real good to get what we receive at 401. That's coming over kind of what we projected in
Yes.
that sense. But I think the 9 split, the number 9 that was on that list was the Literacy Council. Does that sound right?
I believe
It
that
was some
they're on
funding.
in that 1 through 10. I know that much.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have consider Resolution R24-122, a resolution approving the procurement of certain dark trace security software and services through SHI International Corps pursuant to ACA 1458-104-20, and our Information Systems Director, Jeff Winter, will present this item. Jeff?
Thank you. So in an effort to continually improve our cybersecurity program, we're always looking at new products. And so what you have before you here today is a proposal to go ahead and purchase a new email and network security application software. What's unusual about this is we're bringing it to you at mid-year. We had talked to the company about doing this in '25, and we're putting together budget numbers for the budget meetings that are upcoming in the next few months. And in doing so, they came to us with a proposal that allowed us to move that forward to now if we're willing to do that. So that's really what we're bringing to the board is the opportunity to do this now rather than later. As part of that process to move it forward, they'll allow us to start like in July 30th rather than in January. And in doing so, they're going to give us the next 5 months free, or the following 5 months free, which gives us about $23,000 in value. The second thing that they're willing to do is reduce the cost of the annual contract down from $63,000 to about $57K. So that's 6 times 3 because it's a 3-year contract. So that saves us about $18,000. The third thing that they're willing to do is give us a non-reappropriations clause, which says that in those if we have it for 5 months and in January, between now and then you guys decide that we can't afford that because of some other crisis or catastrophe or whatever, then we can bail out of this contract come January. So we're actually not committed to anything other than between now and then. And then the last thing that they offered is this is on a state contract through a vendor that we use, Software House International. So it's actually on a state contract, existing state contract. In your proposal, you'll have the actual costs, or in your agenda, but the total is 162, and that was the other reason for bringing it to the board, because it's over the limit for bill. But be aware that that's approximately 162 is half funded by the county, because this is software that the city and the county will both split costs. So our cost is actually $82,000 total for the 41 months, because it'll be a 41-month contract instead of 36. So what that means in real numbers to us is $27,000 a year. Currently, we spend about $7,000 a year on the current email product, so it's really about $20,000 in new spend. So be aware that that's going to come to you in the budget in '25. But other than that, that's in a nutshell what this is about. So any questions?
Any questions of Jeff? Director Garcia?
Thank you. Is this only used with the water supply? If this software won't be used anywhere else, or will it?
No, so this is city and county wide. So in your like I said, in your notes, you'll have more documentation than what I told you. But otherwise, it protects 850 mailboxes, which is all the mailboxes for the city and the county, which includes every employee, and it includes 800 endpoints. So which an endpoint is. It's actually SCADA systems. It's in what you alluded to, but it's also police, fire. Every division of the city and the county both will benefit from these applications. There's 2 applications really here. It's email and network security. The email, most of you are aware of. It's basically a filter that looks at our email and says, "Hey, is this good or not?" And then the network scanner is actually something new for us. It's going to look at all the traffic flowing around. We've had a couple interesting, so one thing I didn't mention was that we've actually been they gave us a free live demonstration. We were looking at this for like about 2 years, and we zeroed in on a company, and we talked to them, and they gave us a live free demonstration for the last several months. So we've actually been demoing it live on our actual network and on our email for months now, before we came to this conclusion that we wanted to move forward with it. But anyway, there's 2 things that actually got exposed. One of them was related to SCADA. We saw that a vendor out at the treatment plant had hooked up a laptop to one of our networks that they really shouldn't be hooking a laptop up to. We saw that on a police system, some of the police folks were connecting to their server using an insecure protocol that we weren't aware that they were still using. So we've had several examples in the demo process that has exposed that this is something we're really going to benefit from.
That's great. And was there any impact to this year's budget?
There's about 4,000, like I said, and that's in your thing. It's 37, 30, 65, which is half city, half county. So 1,800 or so out of my budget and 1,800 or so out of the county's budget.
But no budget adjustment, I guess.
No. I have plenty of extra funds to cover that.
That's what I was getting to. I'm
yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Director, under your under the utilities, we also run what's called Bedrock through Brown Engineers. So, you know, that's an area that's been under attack across the nation was utilities. But since we've had our SCADA system in place over there, we've also been running Bedrock on those particular facilities.
We spend a lot of time and effort worrying about water and sewer, right? So,
Right.
as well as public safety.
Director Webb?
So this software, these services, Darktrace, if they were to identify potential hackers hacking into the system, whether it be through email or any other type of endpoint avenue, how likely is it that this service and software can identify who this hacker is? Would those capacities be involved too, or is it just to kind of fish away those hackers?
It's more preventative. It's actually not a service, it's software. So the software looks, it uses something called machine learning. I won't say AI, but it's machine learning, where basically it looks at our email and says, hey, this guy's never emailed you before, so you don't want to worry about that. Or this guy's emailed you 100 times, so we're not as worried about him. And looks at whether the domain's brand new. So it looks at a lot of things that a machine can understand. Basically, like if you were a human and you were looking at it, you could say, these things are sketchy, whereas a normal email software might look at pattern-based things. So if it doesn't fit this definition, then it says it's okay, right? But this is a little more sophisticated, and the network part of it is the same type of deal. It's looking at normal activity and says, okay, this is not normal. And so all these systems are going to do is alert us. There is no third party involved other than their software telling IS, hey, we need to be concerned about this. If we were to get breached, I would assume, so actually, one of the other things that this network device will do, and we haven't actually deployed it because we don't own it yet. So in the demo phase, it's been bypassed. It's passive, it's called. But in the actual, when we go in production, it actually has the ability. So it sees a network connection that it doesn't like. It's literally can go out and cut your computer off. So it can talk to our firewall, and it can tell the firewall, hey, don't let this traffic pass anymore. So it can actually do active things that we haven't actually even seen yet. But so it could do those itself, but it's still going to be dependent upon us. If we were to get breached, you might go back and look at these systems and see, it will keep history, and it'll keep, all the stuff that flows through it, and you might be able to look at that and say, this is how it happened.
That was my next question, I think is what you were sharing with us just then, is that if we do flag any of these potential hackers, do we have any capacity to stop those from continuing to, I guess, be a pester to the network?
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying that it can do? The firewall can trigger that particular endpoint to stop?
Bill gets mail all the time.
I've gotten an email before
Department heads
from
get mail.
Pat
That's
McCabe,
right.
and it wasn't Mayor McCabe.
That's right. We as
know?
department head get Bill's email, supposed email saying, hey, we want to he needs to transfer some money. And so this is a little more sophisticated than we've had in the past. And
That's
we've
good.
actually seen it block more and more of those things that are malicious. So we're hoping, like I said, that we're kind of upping our game overall to stop those things from ever happening. And we may never know about them other than the thing stops it without telling us even. So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? Appreciate you, thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Next item is consider resolution R24-123, a resolution approving change order number 2 to the contract with Christ Engineers, Inc. for construction management and inspection services. This is task order 28 to the master service agreement for the Lake Ouachita Water Supply Project in the amount of $300,730. And our project manager, Todd Pillar, will present. Todd?
Thank you and good afternoon. This resolution is for a change order for Christ Engineers to make connections to our new 24-inch water line that we're putting through Garland County. And this is for design, surveying, the plans, in the construction inspection for all these connections. And the biggest thing is we have to put a pressure reducing valve. Basically, it's at Red Oak Filling Station that feeds down towards Diamond Head, because Diamond Head is on Lake Catherine, which is elevation about 307, and our water plant is at 520. So there's 100 PSI static pressure difference between the two. So we need to put a new pressure relief valve in there. And connecting on, we'll connect on to just give you some landmarks. Far Shores, I'm going to go south and go north. Far Shores, going to Diamond Head, Red Oak subdivision, Carpenter Dam Bridge. We'll connect all these places. And what it'll do is, you got to think about where these people live right now. Our water comes from Lake Washita, Cozy Acres, up in Mountain Pine. They're at the furthest in the southeastern portion of our water distribution system. And we have existing 12-inch water lines there. We just want to connect them so that when we get the new water plant online, we can take water from Amity Road and go only 10 miles, and they got good water. This is for just the engineering and surveying and construction management, and it will come out of the board-approved 2023 water bond.
Good. Any questions of Mr. Pillar? Director Garcia?
Do I understand correctly, this is the request for approval of the contract, not any impact to this year's budget? It's already in the budget?
Yeah, it's all in
Oh,
bond money. Yes,
bond,
ma'am.
right?
Yeah, mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
There be no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, your next item is an item of old business. It's consider resolution R2497, a resolution approving the application of Jason Bennett doing business as JJ's Charter Service for a charter service transportation permit with certain conditions. And Harmony, you going to cover this one?
Yes, thank you. To briefly go over the timeline, on March 19th, Mr. Bennett applied for a charter permit to operate his Lincoln Town Car. On March 26th, he received a citation for operating without a permit. His trial was set for June 6th of 2024. On April 15th, the Transportation Advisory Committee met and recommended that the Board of Directors approve his application if he's found not guilty of violating the Transportation Code, as well as some other conditions that they put on that approval. On May 7th, the Board of Directors met to consider the resolution to approve his application and decided to table that until after his trial, which was scheduled again for June 6th. That trial was actually continued until August 1st. So at your next meeting, this will come back to you for you to consider the application, table it, deny it, make a determination.
Yeah, just from a procedural standpoint, you couldn't elect today to continue it again because you said it was coming back to you on your agenda next week. So it has to come up as old business, and the board, as Harmony indicated, would have the option of taking action or continue it or tabling it again until after the August 1st trial.
Director Garcia?
Can we have information in our packet pertaining to, did the judge continue it, or did Mr. Bennett continue it?
I can tell you it was because the city needed witnesses that were not available on that date.
Okay.
So it was actually the city's continuance.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next will be your first item under new business. It's Resolution R24-124, a resolution confirming the appointment of Carmen George to position 1 of the Hot Springs Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. And again, our city clerk, Harmony Morrissey, will present the item.
Thank you. Position 1 on the Hot Springs Housing Authority Board of Commissioners actually expires on August 16th of 2025. It was held by Roy Lee Murphy Jr. until his death on March 10th of this year. When a term of office of a Housing Authority Commissioner expires or a vacancy occurs, the Commission shall appoint a successor to fill the vacancy, subject to confirmation by the governing body. Following Mr. Murphy's passing, the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners interviewed 2 applicants, and at its meeting on May 20th, the Commissioners voted to appoint Ms. Carmen George to serve the remainder of the term for position 1. The Housing Authority did submit their resolution number 3262 that appointed Ms. George. via email, and they respectfully requested the City Board of Directors confirm this appointment.
Any questions? Director Garcia?
Will our packet include the bio and information, the copy of the application of this individual, and will this individual be at our meeting?
I can tell you that what they transmitted was the resolution appointing her. They did not give any kind of packet or information with that.
Can we request that?
I'm happy to request that. I don't know if the individual is planning on, I don't know who else is planning on being here at the meeting. But I can request.
Are we privy to the other application?
I'm not sure who they were. Again, we can request that. And, you know, in full disclosure to the board, you can do the math just as well as anyone. Mr. Murphy's death, March the 10th of 2024, the appointment on May 20th of 2024 is more than 45 days. The Housing Authority has asked that time that be waived and the confirmation take place. But I do want to express to the board that those are the facts, and that determination would be up to you.
I think we should.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next is your first ordinance of the evening. It's ordinance 24-17, an ordinance approving the procurement of a Ford Maverick for the Hot Springs Police Department pursuant to ACA 1447-138, approving a budget adjustment and for other purposes. And again, our Public Works Director, Ron Seavright, will present. Ron?
Good afternoon. So this is a request to purchase a new Ford Maverick truck to be used for the parking enforcement officer. This was the vehicle that was recommended by Chief Harrington and Captain Davis. The Ford Maverick is listed on a state contract. However, none were available in any Arkansas dealership. City staff was able to locate one 2024 Ford Maverick available through McClarty Ford at a price of $30,678, and is asking the Board of Directors to waive competitive bidding for this purchase. This vehicle will also be equipped with a license plate reader and a lot of the enforcement equipment, which has already been purchased.
Any questions on this ordinance? This is an ordinance. Any questions?
Is it possible to include in our packet what the second choice was and the cost?
The choice was the Ford Maverick. Yes, and the costs are in there for what the state contract was, but the problem is they didn't have any available, so we couldn't purchase those.
Did they have, besides the Ford Maverick, was there any other one considered? This is for parking, right?
Correct. They wanted a smaller vehicle than their
Right.
typical.
A police car, yeah.
And this is the most recommended vehicle for that type of work, and would fit all their equipment as well.
Okay. Any additional questions? Thank you.
Next, we have consider ordinance O-2418, an ordinance granting an exclusive franchise for the operation of a food service cart to Jorge Vargas, doing business as Elote Hub, and our city attorney, Mr. Albright, will present.
Thank you, Bill. Several weeks ago, Seth Luton spoke to the board in public commentary about the possibility of doing a street cart food vendor operation. After his presentation, Director Dobbs-Smith encouraged us to send out requests for proposals. Those were duly published and posted on our bids. We did receive one proposal. It was by George Vargas, doing business as Elote Hub. Elote Hub, which, by the way, is some sort of a corn kind of deal. In any event, so that was the only proposal that we received. It was rated and ranked, and ultimately a notice of intent was issued. I then met with Mr. Vargas and Mr. Luton to discuss the terms of the proposed franchise agreement. They are requesting 2 locations, one at Hill Wheatley Plaza. If you're familiar with the planter walls and the sloping sidewalk that goes down to the little fountain area, it would be on the it would be on the southeast portion of that area. As we measured for ADA and pedestrian traffic, that seemed to be the least least impact on that type of traffic. Another location is at the 900 block of Central Avenue on the west side of the street. The hours of operations would be, not that they would be there the entire time, but they would like the ability to operate from 10 a.m. until 2 a.m. at Hill Wheatley Plaza and 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. at the 900 block of Central Avenue. They are not here today. They will be here next week. I think that they will tell you that their intention is to try to catch some of the late night foot traffic, leaving some of the establishments who might want a quick bite to eat. The cost or the fee that would be paid by them to the City of Hot Springs would be a minimum of $100 per month plus 5% of their gross receipts. All of that would be paid on a quarterly basis. All of their financial books and so forth are subject to audit by the city if that's ever required. If our franchise fee, for example, did not jive with what was being submitted from the A&P tax, we would be able to review those. If there was a discrepancy of more than 2%, then they would have to pay for any costs associated with that audit. It would be for a one-year agreement with 4 additional 12-month terms, all of which is subject to termination, first by convenience. That's with the 90 days notice. The city could terminate it for any reason or for cause or by mutual agreement. And also at the conclusion of each term, it would not be automatically renewed unless the parties agreed. And so we would have a 30-day window in which to terminate at that period as well, as would the vendor. Be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have. Yes, ma'am.
Director Garcia?
Thank you. If there's any, you'll include in the packet in your review of the agreement, if there's any liability and insurance or anything of that nature that's required?
Oh, yes, ma'am. They have all of the insurance that is required under the contract. It was required in the terms of the request for proposals, and they have met that and provided us with certificates of coverage for that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions? Director Trustee?
Thank you. Brown, what exactly exclusive franchise? No one else will
Right.
be able to do what Mr. Vargas is doing?
Correct. Let me put it to you a different way. Currently, we do not allow street food vendors. So no one has the ability to do that now. We're allowing one individual to do it through this exclusive franchise.
Yet we have them at Bridge Street Live.
That's
Every time we have Bridge Street Live.
Totally different event. That's in the entertainment district.
That's right.
And they have reserved that space.
Right.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Part of this franchise agreement also excludes, their franchise is subordinate to any city-sponsored or A&P sponsored event.
Okay.
So in other words, if there is something that occupies any space that they would otherwise be able to use through their franchise, they are subordinate to no proration of their fee to the city. Obviously, they can petition whoever is hosting the event, sponsoring the event, if they want to be part of that,
Right.
like any other vendor,
Okay.
but not pursuant to the franchise.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Holliday?
Thank you. Kind of to that point, you said A&P or city-sponsored event. Does that include any private event that has a permit to
Yes.
have an event? Okay.
Yes.
That's just making sure it
Yeah.
wasn't that we're producing the event.
Right.
It's
We're-
if someone has a permit. to
We
do
are
it.
talking about exclusively city-owned property or the city's right of way. And we've identified two spots by coordinate, one in Hill Wheatley and one at the 900 block of Central on the west side of the street.
So the one at Hill Wheatley, sometimes events, their boundaries navigate on either sides of that fountain area, is it, I'm just thinking logistics wise and then also competition wise, if he happens to be outside of the barricades. That's, you know what I'm saying?
If he's not at his designated spot under the franchise, then that's a violation of the franchise. If he's inside the restricted area that's part of the event, then he has to have the permission and pay whatever fees or make whatever arrangements are required for any other vendor that's part of that event.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Director Beard?
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe I missed something. Is it for events or is it for like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's any day of the week. The hours again are,
10 to 2 and 6 to 2.
yeah, it's 10 a.m. to 2, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. And 6 p.m. to 2 a.m.
So, suppose it's successful and other people want to do that, is it exclusive or is that another?
There could be another request to open these up, and the board would be at liberty to issue another one, or to make these, non-exclusive, but again, have to go through the board for the authority to do it. For now, we said exclusive just simply because it's the first and only one. We tried to do this some years ago. You might remember Hot Dogs to Go or something like that, and it lasted about a week.
It was too hot.
So, yes,
So
sir.
if the cookie guy wanted to come down, then we would be open to that, correct?
That would be up to the board, yes.
Okay.
If the board encouraged the staff to go out for RFPs or to hear his petition in and of itself, that's certainly something that you can do. It's kind of like the Flossies at Kimberly Park. How much room do you have? How many of those do you want to have downtown? I don't know the answer to that. That's a board decision. But this would give you a good opportunity to test the water, so to speak, with one. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I heard you mention this yet, Brian, but can you share with the board like the dimensions of this food? I just heard you say food truck. What about the dimensions?
Food cart.
It's a food cart.
Yes, and so I'm
Okay.
very glad that you
That's a
mentioned
big
that.
difference between food truck and food cart.
Yes, food
I had
carts.
in my mind food truck, and I'm thinking,
No, I'm going to use Chief Davis's response. That's a
Okay.
very good question. I'm glad you asked it. That gives me a chance to think what I'm going to tell you. It's a 4x4 cart.
gotcha,
And
okay.
he has asked for
Yes.
4x8 in which to operate. It's a 4x4 cart. I'll tell you that I was recently in Washington D.C. and I saw the carts, and they are just they're obnoxious. I mean, they're signage and it's just terrible. You'll see photographs. I hope that maybe Harmony just showed you on the screen. You'll see photographs of the carts that they'll be using. They're very compact. Here they are.
So they pick it up every night or
Yes,
return it?
That's what I was gonna ask,
They pick it
too.
up. They pick it up every night. The franchise agreement requires them. They cannot leave it unattended. It must be removed if it's not being used.
Thank you.
Is beer and wine available at the cart?
No, I'm glad. Great question. Glad you asked. They are prohibited from selling anything other than food products. They cannot sell hats, caps, T-shirts, souvenirs, or alcohol.
I don't know if he was,
Director Beard?
I was going to say, I don't know if you were joking with that question, but since we're being the board, that's something we could actually approve, right?
No. Sale of alcohol at the cart? No. You'd have to have a picnic permit.
A picnic permit.
Yeah, and I'm not funning when I say that. That's what it's called, a picnic permit.
Plus, those are issued by Arkansas
ABC.
Beverage Control
That's right.
in Little Rock.
We have no purview over the issuance. We have some jurisdiction over the sale, the times that it's sold, but not the license.
All right, any further questions on this item? Very good. Well, we do have a work session following. I think we're going to have a little break for a second, but Bill, what's our order of timing here?
We've got two presentations for you. We were requested to do an update of our water and wastewater master plan. First one would be our water master plan with Matt Dunn. And then our second, Craig Johnson, will do our wastewater master plan and update you on that. They're both with Chris and doing a good job, and I think you'll be impressed with some of the things that you see from this presentation. So probably about 15, 20 minutes on each one, unless the board has more questions.
Very good. We'll take a short break, and then
Yes,
we'll
sir.
be back. Thank you.